Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, everybody. This is one of my patented, well, it used to be patented. I haven't been doing them a lot recently, but since of launching, sorry, I'm working on an eraser here. Since launching Barbaric Adventures #1, I'm streaming like a madman. I'm going to continue to do so because we're bringing public awareness to this project that is very important to me and to David Williams and to Dan Lawless and to Gary Martin, because they're all involved in it. And we want to make it important to you. And you do that by showing the love, by showing up in the middle of the night on a Friday and streaming. But I'm not just going to sit here and talk. I'm not going to do my Sunday show on a late Friday night. I'm going to draw, because I've got a piece here, a Primal Zone piece that I still have yet to finish. So I'm going to finish it tonight, gosh darn it, even if it kills me. Hopefully that will not happen. All right, let's see. Corum's here. He says, woo, let's draw. GJ Martinez, time to get barbaric. Leg Kick is here because, Leg Kick is always here. Let's see who had Corey Land is showing up. It's midnight my time, Aaron. You're an animal indeed, and a very old animal, but an animal nonetheless. Tim F joining us. GJ says your books are the best, Aaron. And who am I to argue with GJ Martinez? Not me. Cole King says, hey, brother, great to see you. Actually, just finished Kit Carter. A very fun read. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. On to Wraith of God 3, and then I'm all caught up. And then it'll be Barbaric Adventures #1. Should I put a Bigfoot in there? There will be a Yeti appearing in this book. I can guarantee you that. All righty. I'll wait a few minutes before I actually inundate you with the sales pitch. So we have a few more customers in the door, because I'm assuming just about everybody here is probably already backed this book. And I appreciate you guys doing that, jumping in early. Makes my life a lot easier. And so anyway, let's switch cameras and get to work, shall we? I still have to eat ice cream before I go to bed. So, okay. Now, I started this piece on graybeards and then was working on it Thursday afternoon. David and I did a stream, and I got most of it inked. Got a little bit of caveman action back here that's not done. His boot isn't done, and then we're gonna put some gray. I'm gonna go with markers this time. I'm gonna go with Copic markers to put on this thing, and I don't know. I think what I'll do after that is I may just throw this baby up on the campaign for sale and try and raise some more capital to fund Barbaric Adventures #1. Because I'm going to do gray on this, a lot of times I wouldn't clean it up, but because I'm going to do gray on this, I do kind of want to clean it up a little bit. So we'll get rid of all the blue pencil under here, more or less. I got to finish this caveman, but I had my eraser out, so I thought, what the heck, I'll just go for it. Of course, this is going to, whenever you erase your pencils, your ink lines you think are so heavy and thick, turn out to be very thin because part of that line was pencil that's no longer there. So I'm going to go up and adjust some of this. So today I finished a cover for an indie creator for his book. I don't think I can mention it just because I figure it's his book. I'll let him mention it when he's good and ready. So, but I have been working. I've got, those of you may know, or some of you may know anyway, that I'm also got a Zorro miniseries I'm working on for Alien Books. And I got to ink that cover for the second issue. The first issue is all done. I have no idea when it's coming out. As far as I know, they have not given us any kind of a deadline yet. So they don't seem to be in any hurry, but that's fine. Neither am I. I've got a lot of stuff to do, so I prefer to not be pressed on it, especially now that this campaign has gone live and I've got to be working on this. So we'll make it all fit. Although I'm not a guy who appreciates working this hard like I used to. It's like I shouldn't be 62 years old and working as hard as I did when I was 32, but there you go. All right, you're probably wondering why this Creepshow thing's in here. I'll get to it in a minute. All right, let's finish up this. We got kind of a caveman here. We don't really know they're cavemen because you can't really see their faces. But you know, you know what? I'm going to flip this and draw a caveman with a monkey face right here, rather than his head down. And I've come this far. I put this much effort into it. Why not go the extra mile and make this a face instead of the back of his head? This particular blue pencil is a blue coal erase. Now, I used to use the light blue coal erase, was my favorite. The problem is I don't make them anymore because whatever I fall in love with, they quit making them just to piss me off. So, but I recently discovered this, and it's not as great as the light blue because it's darker, obviously. But looks like Joe Pesci in The Irishman. I'm going to work on that a little bit. I do like using, though, a colored pencil, even sometimes red, for my underdrawing. I don't know why. I mean, I started using the blue pencil simply to, his head's too freaking big. Because you don't have to erase it for reproduction. You can scan it in and you can, what shows up, you scan it like in bitmap, which I do quite a bit. The blue doesn't really pick up. It can a little bit, like you get like a dotty kind of or broken really light black lines sometimes. But if you scan it in color and the blue's in there, you can remove the color in Photoshop. Just remove the blue, which I find to be very helpful. But yeah, it's really advantageous not to have to God, his freaking head's too big. It's really advantageous not to have to erase your underdrawing, because anytime you do that, you're going to erase your penciling too that you don't want to erase. So using a blue pencil really very much eliminates the need to erase your underdrawing. It was one of the things I adapted or figured out, I guess, in the 90s to be more efficient in my drawing. In other words, get it done quicker. So, all right, I think that head is reasonable. Give him a little loincloth down here because, well, modesty. Okay, let me try this again. See if I can keep from that head getting too big. I guess we could argue that, you know, cavemen have giant heads anyway, right? So if they have giant heads, why aren't their brains bigger? Why aren't they smarter? There's a lot of mysteries involved with the caveman. They all sort of look like the Hulk. Or at least my cavemen do. I like how Frazetta was always able to get like his cavemen to look like, you know, like monkey men, which is really what I'm always after. But mine always end up looking like the Hulk, which I guess kind of looks like a monkey, right? If you draw him the right way. Iodine 74. Just read Barbecue Adventures. Oh my gosh, don't make me hungry too. Backer count right now is 230 some backers. The goal for the entire campaign is probably 1,000 or close to that. Anytime you do something like this, it's, you know, it's a little bit different than what I've been doing. You know, you're gonna have some people that go, I don't know if I'm really into that. But if you're the one saying that, you should, I'm telling you, this is going to be really, really cool, and encourage you to fight your resistance to black and white, and understand that it is in itself very wonderful art form that we are exploiting to its maximum on this book. And the thing is, if you're not, you know, it seems to me like everybody's a Conan fan, but I know there's probably a lot of people that aren't into that, maybe female readership that isn't into that as well. But these are not just, you know, stories about, you know, Conan characters running around slaughtering people. These are really more geared towards continuing adventures type stories with multiple characters. Obviously, in mine, we have the hero, Carson Taylor, and Celia is the girl he meets in the Primal Zone, which is a interdimensional land of dinosaurs and cavemen and stuff. But there's a society that she's involved with. There's multiple societies in there, and so it's not just dinosaurs and cavemen, but there's a heck of a lot of that going on too. So it's a little more involved than, pardon the expression, than just a kind of a random dinosaur adventure story or barbarian story. So I think if you take the time to check it out, you will be very pleased. I'm glad that you did. So I've decided to, going forward in my career, spend seem to be doing more with these pens than I do with the brush anymore. Because there's two reasons why, really. It's easier than a brush in the sense that I don't have to maintain such a high level of control in concentration while I'm working on it. I can work faster. And I can use the pen to build up, sort of line weights that I could do very easily with a brush. But I started moving to a pen because, quite frankly, I had a lot of criticism when I was in the mainstream that, my stuff was just kind of too old-fashioned, too 70s, if you will, with a brush look. So I've been over the years trying to adapt to more of a pen look. This is more of I don't know, a sketch than I would consider a completely finished product. But so I'm going to be a little bit looser with this. But you can it's a lot easier to get kind of an angular sort of, we'll just call it, put in quotes, a modern look to your work using a pen than using a brush. But again, it all depends what you're going for. And I don't know, I spent my whole career as a brush inker, being inked by brush inkers, with the exception of the times that Danny Mickey inked me, which I thought was really, really cool, because it gave it a really interesting look to my work that I don't give myself. And even when I ink a pen, I can't mimic what Danny does. He just has this kind of flair to what he's doing that, I don't know. I don't know if I've ever seen him ink anybody where it didn't work. So I kept thinking, well, if I can get kind of a more modern pen look, the industry will think of me differently or more highly. The problem was there wasn't there's Danny Mickeys, they're not a dime a dozen. So I very rarely got Danny on my stuff. It had to be like I was on a big project, when I was doing Hulk, or when, a cover or something like that, or an X-Men story, I could get him. But I finally asked Matt Ryan, who was my regular inker. He's a great brush inker, a tremendous brush inker. But I said, dude, can you ink this with a pen just to see if we can get kind of a different flair to the artwork? And he did. He started doing that right when we were on Justice League International, which I worked on in the New 52 with Dan Jurgens was writing. And about 2/3 through the series, I had him start inking with a pen, and it really, he was able to maintain the stuff that I liked about his inking, but he gave it a kind of a more interesting, again, a more modern, if you will, flair. And I really liked it, so I just kept him on doing that. And now I guess he's sort of become a pen inker himself. I don't know if that's my fault or if he just, like all of us. Again, working with a brush is, I give Gary Martin a lot of credit for sticking with it over the years. because it is challenging way to ink. And the thing is, back when everybody was using a brush, no one was doing this kind of detail. I mean, nobody was. This kind of fine detail stuff. No one did it mainly because it didn't reproduce worth a darn. And so you put all this little noodly fine line work in there and it just breaks up in the printing process. So it's like, what's the point? So you had, most guys were going much bolder with their line work, which was great for using a brush. And a brush is extremely flexible. So that was kind of the thing. But then I think Scott Williams, probably more than anybody, ushered in that sort of really cool brush or pen line work in the 90s, 80s and 90s, late 80s, early 90s. And then it just became the thing. And then pretty soon everybody was a pen inker. And except for us old throwbacks like me and Gary. And but like I said, I eventually moved away from that. See, I can go in like this and build up that line. And yeah, it's easier with a brush because you're just doing it in one stroke and you're adjusting that line weight with pressure. But it's a lot harder to get if you want like an angular look, you know, or you know, having some kind of bumpiness you add here and there to kind of give the line a little more energy, so it's not just like this super slick porcelain line. If that's, you know, if that's not what you want. And there was a time when I wanted that, but that's not what I'm going for now. So with the pen, you can do that. You can also do some nice, really fine feathering. You can't. It's a little more difficult to feather out of the blacks, and get that really heavy base that flares out to a thin point when you're feathering out of the blacks with a pen. But, you know, it's one of those things you just sort of, there's a give and take. And so you have to kind of decide which is more valuable to you and the style you're trying to get. All right, so we got another caveman there. Yeah, there's I'm sure I had multiple conversations with Dave about inkers over the years. I used to blame inkers for everything. Now I blame colorists, but I never blame myself, and I think that's important to remember. Why doesn't that guy have a cape and a cowl? Dave, it's kind of hot in the jungle. So leg kick for $5 just because. Thank you for that. I will take money any way I could get it and be happy about it. All right. So I guess we'll finish this dude's hand a little bit here. It's kind of, as you can see, running off the page, so I'm not going to finish it. We'll just let it kind of fade like a little vignette. So we're laying on this kind of rocky surface, so we'll put some cracks in there. Did over here. Okay. This actually became a way more involved piece than I ever imagined it was going to be. I did it on Graybeards last week on Graybeards and really started it, and I was not happy with it. I thought it really sucked. And I was talking to Ron Garney on the phone, and as I was talking to Ron, I started inking on it, you know, because you're sitting there talking. So, you know, I'm either doodling on a napkin or I'm, you know, doing something. So I started inking this, and I was like, oh, I put some blacks in there and everything, and it started to come together. And I was like, you know what? I might be able to save this. This is actually turning out pretty well. And so I got a whole new outlook on it. And now this is my third draw stream where I've been working on this piece. So the next draw stream I do, I'm going to be working on this page. I never work out of order on my scripts, but this one I'm going to, because this occurs like well into the story. But well, at least halfway into the story probably. And but the layout is here, so you know what? I'm just going to do it. What the heck? Got to be done at some point. So that's what I'll be working on. Also, I've got another cover to paint, so I got to work on the artwork for that to get that on the canvas and get that ready to go. So those will be the things that'll be occupying my many draw streams I'm going to do. And of course, they're going to occur at any time during the day or night without warning. So I just don't know. Going to see the grandkids tomorrow, so it won't happen tomorrow. Unless I just show up like really late at night tomorrow, I might do it again. And why not? I used to, when I first started doing this, man, I was like streaming all the time. My wife was really getting pissed at me. So I had to sort of pull back a little bit. And then when you get knee deep into a project and you start working on it, you're like, I can't spend time streaming. I got to get this book done. So I've been in that mode for, probably the last couple of years. And I just kind of felt like, I need to get out more, not out of the house, but out more on the internet and do more of these. Your, full disclosure, your percentage of backers is considerably lower than your viewer numbers. So you've always got like 10 times more people watching your stuff than are actually backing your projects. So the more people that just stands to reason, the more people that see it, the more chance you have of someone backing your project. I never really understood that. You'd think more people would be interested in backing, but so I'm here to do to convince you that that's what you should be doing. Okay, I think this is about ready to drop some gray on here, and let's just bring this thing to life. But first, let's take a moment for a commercial break. Bisley would go freaking nuts on it. It would look very different than it does right there. I'm still, even if I'm trying to be loose, I'm still very controlled in my looseness, where Bisley is just, it's like high energy. It's like he'd like Sienkiewicz, he'd just be or Sienkiewicz, excuse me. I always get, Dan Lawless always chides me for saying Sienkiewicz instead of Sienkiewicz. But anyway. All right. So let's take a look. You guys knew this was coming. So we got 150 plus watching right now. So I'm going to guess that there's some of you out there. We have 241 backers that have not yet backed this project. So let me try and coerce you into doing so, if you don't mind. You may mind, but I'm going to do it anyway. There it is, folks. That is the trailer that I spent good money on to promote this campaign. Um, I love that part with the roar where the dinosaur growls in there. Now, you guys probably are aware of this, but did you know that not only at the end of Jaws, when after Brody blows up Jaws and he sinks to the ocean, we have that dinosaur uh, scream or growl or whatever in the background as it sinks to the bottom. Do you know he did the exact same thing in Duel when the devil semi went over the cliff and crashed? He put a dinosaur growl over the top of it. Just throwing that out there for you guys that may or may not know that stuff. All righty. How about this? So what is this thing about? It's a 64-page square-bound magazine format. That means it's 8.5 by 11. It's black and white, but it does have tonal rendering, which we're about to do on this image you see over there that I'm working on the left of your screen. The whole purpose for this project was to kind of recreate that sort of feeling of Savage Tales from the 1970s, those Savage Tales magazines. I was a big fan of those when I was a kid. And not just the Savage Tales or Savage Sword of Conan, but Creepy and Eerie magazine. And there was some sci-fi ones, and even Marvel jumped into it with, Rampaging Hulk. There was like a Kung Fu one. So they did a lot. It was kind of a rage for a while, and I thought they were really cool. I used to buy those, and it didn't, unlike some of you who are black and white prejudiced, it didn't bother me as a kid that they weren't in color, because I always thought, the pages were bigger, the art was cleaner and more detailed, and so it was just, it felt more illustrative and artistic to me, even as a wee lad. So I thought, you know what? Let's do something like that, because I'm all about bringing back my youthful past, and the older I get, the more I want to do it. Go figure. So anyway, in this magazine, it debuts my new series called Primal Zone, where we have I guess we'd call it maybe a soldier of fortune is hired to go through an interdimensional portal to find a missing man that went through it 20 years earlier. And this is what he finds on the other side. Some cave girl action and some dinosaurs rampaging and lots of intrigue, and very interested to what happened to that guy that went through 20 years ago. So anyway, it's good, clean, family, barbaric, savage adventure fun. We have also a story by David Williams, who introduces us to the story of a young medieval knight who battles a horde of demons in a quest to become a true warrior. This is really a great story that David has, very layered, full of depth with, surprise twists in it. It's really good. And then Dan Lawless comes up with a tale of the futuristic Mars, where a high-tech society has fallen into a savage chaos, and one man leads a rebellion to fight and survive in this now barbaric world. Gary Martin also contributes to the project, and he does the inside front cover illustration. And we're gonna take a look at an old Savage Tales in a minute to give you guys an idea of what I'm talking about. So anyway, you have 4 covers that you can choose from. Now, up here on the right-hand side, you'll see this is a 4-pack plus. You see this little reward here where it says select this reward. 4-pack plus. You get all 4 cover options, which we'll go over here quickly. And then the sketchbook, which is also $20. But you put it all together, it's a $120 value. You can have it for $105. I think that's a pretty good deal. There's David's cover, which I think is killer. I love this cover. There's Dan Lawless's cover, which I also love. I love did I say color? Cover. I love the color in this cover. And then, of course, when I say we, I mean me, I coerced with money Joe Jusko to do this painted cover as well. So you get the top guy in the industry at, fantasy painted covers right now, and I got him to do one for this book. And I think that's pretty freaking cool. So those are your 4 cover options. This is what some of the interior artwork on my story looks like. You can see the ink wash in there. And I'm doing these like really big. These are like, I think the page is like 14 by 19 inches. So I'm just going for it, man. This is going to be cool. I'm going to have a stack of really cool original artwork when this is done. This is page 2. So you see our girl here goes down to get a drink of water, and oops, guess it was this guy waiting in that lake. It must have been a pretty deep lake. But anyway, there it is. He's coming up trying to get a meal here. This is a page from Dan Lawless's Mars Madness story. I really love how he uses that gray to really make this 3-dimensional and come to life. Love it. This is kind of artwork you're going to be looking at. We'll be premiering some of David Williams' stuff later as the campaign goes on here in next couple weeks. Now, the other really good deal in this campaign is the Big Barbaric box. And in that, you get 2 exclusives that you can only get if you buy the Big Barbaric box. And that is, one is this portfolio of these 4 prints. It comes in an illustrated envelope signed by me, since I drew and painted all of these. So it only makes sense that I would sign it. And then also you get the 5th cover, which you can only get when you buy the Big Barbaric box. So this is kind of based on Doc Savage, James Bama Doc Savage cover concept, where you got a monochromatic background and you've got Doc Savage kind of in the middle of all this. And that's what I'm going for here. We'll see. I think the painting itself is going to be really, really cool. This is just a color rough. It's not the finished artwork. But it's just to give you an idea. But as I move along in this painting, I'll be doing videos of me working on this as well, which should be fairly interesting, I would hope. We do have stretch goals set up, 40,000 for every backer that will receive a Primal Zone trading card, which will be new exclusive art done just for the card. I don't reproduce old art on cards. I like to create new art for it. And there's another card of Eon Chance, which is probably the main villain of the Lopresti verse. But he's been on a value stamp, and he's been on a sticker, I think. Maybe just the value stamp. But here we're going to have a trading card for him. Wait a minute. Did I already do a trading card? GJ Martinez would know. I think I did. So I'm going to change that to somebody else. I think I did. Did I do it? I can't remember. I have to go back and check. No, actually, I don't think I did. What do I know? And at 80,000, we're going to do the Ice Princess. That's the girl up here that Jusko immortalized for us with this killing the Yeti. We're going to do a card of her. And then at 100,000, I've got some options of things that I'm going to throw at you guys. When we start getting close to that, I will let you know. This is the Barbaric Adventures sketchbook. And if you look over to the, where is it? The little window on the left of your screen, it's the same size as the Kit Carter sketchbook, 8.5 by 11, 32 pages. So it's actually kind of a companion piece. This will fit on your shelf with your Kit Carter sketchbook, and also Barbaric Adventures #1 will fit really nicely with the Kit Carter trade paperback, because they're essentially the same size. This is a limited edition print you can get. It's only available through this campaign. It won't be sold on my website afterwards unless I have like a couple extras, because let's say 112 people order this. I'll probably print 120. And then I have 8 extras that I would sell on the website for an inflated price, because I'm all about, I'm a capitalist. What are you going to do? But this comes signed. You can get that for $15. Barbaric Adventures shot glass. All right. We have been doing shot glasses since the very first campaign. I think I got one right here with a little Lego guy in it. This is dirty. I need to wash it. See that right there left your screen? That's a Garbage Man. See, the Garbage Man logo is laser etched into the glass, so it doesn't like wash off, right? And so we've done one of Wraith of God, Garbage Man, Kit Carter, the Nightclub, and then now it'll be Barbaric Adventures will be the 5th one to add to your collection. And there's going to be 6 total. And the 6th one, of course, will be in the next campaign. We have original art for sale. A lot of this is sold already. This is gone. This is gone. This is still available, though. This is gone. That's a nice piece. I did that a couple of years ago, but it's been sitting in my drawer trying to figure out how to use it. And finally did here in this campaign. This page and this page are for sale. David Williams covers for sale, but it's been sold. So that's gone. And then, of course, my painted cover, which is 18 by 24 acrylic on canvas. That's also for sale down here. But anyway, the way these campaigns are set up, if you don't know, you have to scroll the entire page down to the bottom. There's nothing on the side except the one pinned reward over here, the 4-pack plus. Otherwise, you just have to keep scrolling, and it'll take you down to rewards, everything you can get. You can get the Barbaric Adventures #1 with the sketchbook and get a $5 discount for getting both. You can get Barbaric with the sketchbook, Barbaric Adventures #1 sketchbook, and the print for a $5 savings. Well, I know it's not a lot, but it's something. And then the big Barbaric box, which includes everything, and the 2 exclusive items, the 5th cover and the 4-print portfolio. That's a $210 value. That is $185. That is a good savings. That's my math is correct, $25. So essentially, you're getting that 5th cover, for free in that box. That's pretty good. So you can see the original art's down here, and all the ones that are gray have been sold. The ones that are purple are still available. And then you get down finally to the bottom, and you get your add-ons. You can add anything onto your order. So you create a cart now on Indiegogo, like add to your pledge and add to your pledge. And then when you're done, it'll show up over on the top right above the 4-pack plus reward window there. And you can go to your cart, and it'll give you all the checkout information. So before, you used to order a perk, and then you go to pay for it, and then you can have your add-on options. Now you do everything up front, and then it just puts it in your cart, and then you pay for it at the end. So these are all the items. If you missed like Wraith of God, we've got all 3 issues here. If you missed Kit Carter, we've got it. Garbage Man, Power Cubed, in very limited numbers, but I do have some, so they're on here. You can get all the covers as add-ons and the Kit Carter sketchbook as well. So there's a lot here that you can add on to your campaign if you're missed out. A lot of this stuff, not all of it, but a lot of this stuff is also available on my website. If you don't want to wait, you can order it directly from the website. So anyway, that's kind of how the whole thing works. And I want to warn everybody. Sorry, I'm probably giving everybody motion sickness. If you go all the way down to the bottom, estimated shipping costs and VAT collection. Okay, shipping costs shipping costs, don't clip that. Shipping costs are now billed at a later date, okay, once the campaign is closed. So what everybody's telling me, and I didn't know this because this is all new Indiegogo stuff. And I think they do this on Kickstarter. You order your whatever you want to order, and it doesn't bill you until it doesn't bill your credit card until the campaign's over, right? Which will be in 47 days or something like that. And then you'll get a bill it'll charge your credit card, but it'll then also charge you shipping. So I think that's how it's working. I'm still not 100% sure how they're billing, but I think that's how it's working. So really you should back right now because it feels like it's free because they don't charge you for a while. Now we got a few backers already. Look at that. Thank you guys very much. Appreciate that. But you'll find a link in the description of this video as well as pinned to the top of the chat. And if you're watching on X, just zip over to either my page on X and there's a link there, or you can zip over to Indiegogo and type in, once you get there, type in Aaron Lopresti or Barbaric Adventures. It'll take you right to the campaign. How about that? Okay, back to the art. Dave Ulbrich is right. If you miss Kit Carter, per shame. That is a very enjoyable, fun book. And it's one of those things that, you do a project and you hope it turns out one way. And sometimes it never hardly ever lives up to what your expectations going into it were. The Kit Carter hit right on the money. It was exactly what I wanted it to be. I was really pleased with the artwork. Matt Ryan actually inked that. And because I wanted, because I'm getting into this more rougher inking style, and I wanted something more polished with Kit. And so I called up Matt and he did it. And it looks terrific. Kelsey colored it. Kelsey, who's been missing now for over a year. But he colored it. The whole thing looks great. It's just a really fun graphic novel, and it's oversized, 8.5 by 11, much like Barbaric Adventures is going to be. And so it's just, it's got big art, it's colorful, it's fun. So anyway, there you go. Thank you, Dave Ulbrich, for the plug there. Why do I have this stuff out? Let me tell you why. Okay, so this is a Savage Sword of Conan magazine from, when is it? 1980. Okay. Painted cover, which we're offering. Now, these always had an illustration on the inside front cover, which Gary Martin will be providing for our book. And what I'm going to do is I'm absolutely going to copy this title page. So it looks exactly like this, except it'll say Aaron Lopresti presents, and it'll say Barbaric Adventures. And so we'll have the credits here, and we'll have the table of contents down here, and your little indicia. And then you'll flip the page, and there'll be something here. I don't know exactly what I'm going to put there yet. Possibly more art, or maybe like some sort of editorial commentary. I have no idea. I'll figure it out. And then you have your lead story, right? In this case, in this magazine, it's John Buscema, inked by Rudy Nebres. And so imagine me, I'm the lead in this Barbaric Adventures. So I'm John Buscema, inked by Rudy Nebres, and I can live with that. So anyway, we go through here. And now this isn't ink washed. Now, a lot of times they did ink wash. This is not. This is straight black and white. Ours will be ink washed, which means there will be volume and grays in there to kind of round out the art and give it more depth and stuff than just plain black and white. Not that this doesn't have depth, because this is really nice. But you can even see on this how some of this line work breaks up. And not going to happen in our book. It's going to be high quality, baby. So anyway, then you've got a lead story here. Roy Thomas, the Hyborian Reporter. So then they give you just kind of some fan stuff, and which I don't know I'm going to really have room in this to do it because we have so much story. But what's going to come next then is, these usually had 2 stories in them. We're going to have 4. So they did a Solomon Kane that, no offense to David Wenzel, but not really super high quality. But what you'll find in ours is you turn to the next story and it's super high quality, because it'll be David Williams, and then followed by Dan Lawless, which is super high quality. And so we're going to run the 3 stories, and then we'll do kind of a quick editorial break. I won't have any pictures of Red Sonja, though. I got to tell you, though, I don't know who Daniette is here as Red Sonja, but she looks pretty good. This is Roy, apparently. Roy needs to pump a little iron before he goes out shirtless and pretends to be Conan, I'm just going to say. And so anyway, we'll do a little editorial thing. And then I'm going to run my original Primal Zone story from 1997. It's 8 pages, never been published before. So you can see what the original was. There'll be a little editorial comment about it before it starts. And then you're going to get another preview story, but a preview story of Freya the Ice Princess, the Yeti Slayer that Joe Jusko did on the cover. And that will take us probably darn near to the end of the book. Right here, rather than an ad for Barry Windsor Smith books, which, you know what I should do? I should just copy this and put it in the book. It'd be kind of funny. I doubt Moondance Productions even exists anymore that's selling all this stuff. But kind of funny. Create your Marvel library. Ooh, I could put that on the back cover. I don't have that many books, but I could do that. And have a coupon that you cut out. That'd be kind of funny. I do that. But anyway, I'll probably put a pin up here. So you have a pin up on the inside front cover, and then on the inside back cover. Now, the difference is going to be, the reason I have this creep show is 64 pages. This is 64 pages. This is square bound. This is what Barbaric Adventures is going to be. It's going to be square bound because it's one thing, and it may have very similar paper to this. Pretty good sized paper, maybe not quite this heavy, but the newsprint, it's very, as much as I would love to use newsprint, no one uses it anymore, and you have to have a web press to use it. And results have been from, Pete Cimetti, who is the guy that uses this all the time, is the one telling me, that he finally is doing it himself because the printers he used, just their lack of quality was distressing to him. So, but my print rep tells me that she has a paper that's kind of simulated newsprint, but it's heavier. So we're going to go with that and try to get kind of a newsprint feel to it, just to kind of, again, capture that nostalgia. But it'll be heavier paper than this. So we're going to put it square bound, because a heavy paper and you staple it at the spine, it's going to bow out right here at the spine, up like that. And we don't want that. So it's going to be a really nice looking book that's going to have a little bit of heft to it, but then you'll open it up and it'll catapult you back to the Savage Tales day that at least I remember. I don't know, you guys may be not even old enough to remember it, but it's good times had by all. So we used to sit around in my living room and read Creepy and Eerie magazine and Savage Tales and Savage Sword, and every once in a while a couple booty shots in there and you go, shh, don't tell my mom. Anyway. Let's see. I think I saw that edition of Creepshow in a bookstore. Still not as scary as Dave modeling for Aaron. I'm assuming there was a conversation in there someplace. Oh, there it is. Dave Albrecht says, I will model live on StreamYard. Be prepared to be repulsed. We'll have to have Dave will be like the Sultan, that's kind of laying back shirtless, laying back on the couch with drinking wine. And as they bring in the slave girls or whatever, that's what we'll do with Dave. Yeah, there you go. I should have, if only I'd written you in like that, Dave. I'd known ahead of time. Hey, there's Pity Ma. Thanks for joining us. I said booty, but they do, Savage Tales. Number one, a lot of people haven't seen it. It's kind of an expensive book. I happen to own it, but John Romita Jr. did a story in there called The Femizons or something like that. And there was a little bit of nudity in it. Jazzy John got a little spicy. But my mom, despite being a devout Christian and raising me as a devout Christian in a Christian household, she understood art. And she never looked at those like I was, oh my gosh, my son's looking at pornography. She just looked at it as art. And so never really got too uptight. If I was bringing home like a porn magazine, yeah, that would probably not have gone over well. But like a illustrated magazine like that, if there was nudity in it, because I had Prezetta stuff all over the place at a very young age. And she just sort of said, you know what? It's art, baby. And I said, you know what, Mom? You're right. It is art. All right, so we're going to go in with markers here. And obviously by where the shadow's at on here, my light source is coming down like this, right? So now I'm really a wimp when it comes to this stuff. I like to slowly build up rather than drop in real heavy shadows, and then you go dark to light. I'm coward. So I do everything light and I slowly build up to dark. And also what it does by putting this is a neutral gray 0. The reason I'm doing it with a neutral gray instead of a warm gray is because this is going to be more representational of what the final artwork looks like in the book. Okay, but also laying the markers down like a 0 layer first, you can blend over the top of it with your darker markers. Kind of like primes the paper, I guess, if you will. Okay. And so all of my grays are up against where my darks, my shadows are, with the white would be over on this side because that's where the light's hitting, and that's going to be your lightest area. And the dark, of course, is going to be blending out of the black shadows I've established here. Now, these markers or this ink here shouldn't bleed, but it looks like it bled a little bit someplace, and I picked up some darker gray here, which is fine because I want it close to that. I want it darker, close to that shadow anyway. Because you can see when it dries, you can still see it, but it's dries very light. So we're going to go in there with darker stuff in a minute, but I'm going to go ahead and uniformly put in my gray 0s first, and then we'll just, like I said, we'll build up with darker colors. And again, I'm bringing my grays just right out of the shadows. Though that's my guide for where I'm going to put my shadows initially. And once we build up these darker areas, then I can be a little more bold and move the more gray into the white areas. So I'm going to jump on with the, see, if I go with an N1, it's not going to be all that different. So I'm going to jump up to an N3. And this is going to be darker. So I'm going to hit this. All right. I probably won't go any darker than a 3. Okay, so vein right there. I might have to hit that again with some white. I'm done. So going here with this, again, coming right out of the shadow. Right, so now what I can do is I put that in there, and I go back to my 0, and I can blend kind of over the top of that, soften it a little bit, right? And the thing with these markers, they're very much, I treat them very much like wood or watercolor, but they're still easier to use. But you can see how you can create even more volume than is here in the black and white. And that's kind of the object of what we're going to do in the book. Because all of us are using gray tonal values on our stories. And you can see it just, it's a lot more work, obviously, but I think it really looks nice. I really like this look. And again, it takes it to a level more than just, straight black and white can give you. But we're not really obstructing the line work, which is, as an artist, that's what's, for comic book work anyway, that's to me the most important thing, is that line work. And a lot of times colors will come in too dark, too saturated with their colors, and they'll cover up the artwork. And it really kind of, It can change the look of somebody's face. It can change a lot of things. And so I'm kind of excited actually to do this. I've never done, to my knowledge, I have to think, but I don't think I've ever done a black and white book. So if you can't hit your bucket list items when you're self-publishing, when are you ever going to do it? Because I can't see Marvel or DC right now ever publishing anything in black and white. I mean, the idea was always in black and white. Yes, it's cheaper to produce, and your printing costs are lower, and obviously you're not paying a colorist. But that's not why I'm doing this. I'm doing this for artistic reasons. And, you know, when you're a kid and you get influenced by stuff like this, you never sit there and go, and not cynical, you know, when you're 12 years old or whatever, reading this, going, no, the only reason this is black and white is because they could, you know, they're trying to save money on the color, which may have been true, but I didn't know that as a kid. I just thought, well, you know, to me, it signified there was more of an adult magazine, and it was more to be more artistic. You know, I was like, when what's his face? What's the Ted Turner bought MGM, and when it started colorizing all those movies, and people like Spielberg and other guys were having a fit, just saying, you know, these are intended to be black and white movies. Don't put color over them. You're ruining them. Of course, Ted Turner didn't care because the audience, they didn't want to watch black and white movies. But there's a couple of really great, and of course the argument was, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. The argument was from Ted Turner's standpoint, hey, if they'd had color, they would have shot these in color, which is true, but the reality was that they didn't have color, so they had to light them in such a way to make the most of the black and white. And so there is a real artistic approach to it that they were just ignoring by slapping color over the top of it. And now there's been more than two, but the two movies that come to mind for me are that were purposely made in black and white during the color era was Young Frankenstein, classic, and Raging Bull, classic. And also The Elephant Man, which people, for some reason, don't consider it a classic. I do. I still think it's David Lynch's best movie because, believe it or not, Mel Brooks produced that. And he kept him under control so he didn't get too weird. Even though it is kind of a weird movie, it's probably his most traditional film. And I actually love that movie. In fact, I loved it so much. I was mad when Raging Bull won Best Picture, even though Raging Bull, of course, is a great film. See, now that I've kind of warmed up here using the darker grays and lighter grays, now I'm going to get bold and just go ahead and put the darker gray here because I know what it's going to look like compared to what I've already laid down. All right, let's do the chick next. Now that we're sufficiently warmed up, we can do the chick next. Well, that's true. That's what I just said. Yeah, they you know, they didn't use full color because it was too expensive, and people were fine with it, right? Because that's what they were given. But as soon as you start giving them color, now that's all, that's all they wanted for a long time. And I get that. But, and also the other thing is that with comics is, they're entertainment just like movies. But like movies, we like movies to be more of an artistic statement more often than they are. But comics can also be an artistic statement. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do here, is to be an artiste. Okay, so we'll go in here. I'll be delicate with her. Go with my gray 0. It's so funny when I do female characters, I very rarely put in real heavy blacks, especially on the face, where I will do it on a guy because the guy, is more rugged and who cares, chiseled. And the girl, I want it softer. So I usually don't put a lot of shadows on her face, but I can do it here with the gray. So we'll hit everything with a 0 here. Again, light source coming this way. So our light hits here in the foreground. So I'm going to leave that white. I didn't put any heavy shadows on her mid-drift here either. So I'll have to do it with the grays. We'll hit her with that gray here to give her more of an eyeshadow, which always looks nice. Gray over here without getting too crazy. Go and soften that edge a little bit. This is the neutral 3 I'm using right now. Kind of want to try and maintain that texture for her little fur bikini here. So I'm not going to blend it as much. I'm just going to kind of use lines and spottiness there to create that texture. I'm pretty sure I'm going to put, I'm pretty sure Indiegogo will allow me to edit this now that it's live. It used to, so I'm assuming it still will. If it does, I will be putting this up for sale on the site as well. I'm getting kind of noodly here, but that's... Is anybody besides Dave Ulbrich going to WonderCon? I know Dave will be there. I haven't gone in years. My biggest problem with WonderCon is it's so close to San Diego, and it's relatively in the same area. I'm always afraid that I'll go there and sell stuff at, WonderCon, but then I go to San Diego and I'll see a lot of the same people and they say, "Oh, I already bought that." You know, so, but I do love WonderCon. It's like right across the street from Disneyland. In fact, Dave and I walked from our hotels to Main Street Disneyland to get food more than once. And I keep saying it's like I do this every year. Next year I'm going to go. Next year I'm going to go. So next year I'm going to go. Let's see. We'll see if I actually do it. The thing about San Diego is I don't get a free ride from San Diego. So I got to pay to go to San Diego, which is very expensive. And then I got to pay, if I do WonderCon, I got to pay for that too, which is expensive, but not as expensive. I think I'm going to go darker. I've got to go darker on the pants, or it's just going to be the same color as the same value as his body. So we're going to go with a 4 here. You start getting into the like 5 and 6, those grays get pretty dark, and you're going to start to lose. You're going to lose some of that detail, just like if you were, putting really dark colors over the top of it. Kind of got to be careful here. I'll do the same thing. I'll put the super dark areas against the shadows. And then I'm going to hit it with, we do an N2. We haven't used a 2 yet. Kind of blend a little bit here. Leave some of that white in there. Make this belt a dark gray too. And I'm going to do the same thing. These little pouches. Again, light's coming this way, so I'm going to leave some of that light like that. Here's our gun. We're going to do the same thing with the gun. I'll go ahead and hit this with a 2. A little blending here. Oops. And if you use the same intensity of gray, like if I go over this again with a 4, which is what I'm doing, it will darken more. So it is kind of like, they're not really opaque, but there's a little opaqueness to them that you can build on the same value, and it will get darker without necessarily going with a darker pen. I'm going to keep this belt lighter. Like that. I may run a darker streak through it. Make that be silver. What is this? That's a 2. I don't do that. Take a little bit of this 4 and put it on her fur bikini. There you go. Major Corn Dog saying it's making me think of Warren Publications. Great work. Thank you. That's the idea, right? That's the throwback. A lot of people haven't experienced that, and a lot of people don't remember them or didn't read them or weren't around when they were out. But it was like a major. You'd go into like a 7-Eleven or wherever you bought comic books back then, and there would be the comic book rack, right? So you'd go through all that, but then down there would be those wooden shelving with the magazines on them, and they had these comic magazines, and I got a lot of mileage out of those too. I spent most of my time buying the horror ones, and whenever Bernie Wrightson did a an inside front cover or something like that, I was all over it. But I oftentimes, and I guess they didn't care back then because all that stuff was returnable, but you could sit there and read those magazines in the 7-Eleven. And if you weren't in there too long, they didn't really say much. Just let you do it. And I always ended up buying stuff. So it wasn't like I just came in there and read stuff and left. But I did read more than I bought, I can tell you that. All righty. I'm going to take an N5 and do this boot leather. And then I'm going to hit that with a 2, I think, and blend out a little bit. And so then I'll go in with some whiteout probably over the top of that to kind of let's see what I got here. Put a little more of this on there. All right, so let's see. Her hair is red, so that's going to be dark. I'm just going to go with a 2, I think, on her hair. Yeah, I think that works nicely. It's not too dark. You can kind of see that as being red hair. You're just using grays. Now put a little bit heavier. Where's my 3 at? That's a 4. Where's my 3? There it is. Just put a little bit to give it a little bit more volume. A little bit darker here at the roots. And then so the light will be hitting it up here. So maybe some of this hair is catching some shadow. So that's going to go a little darker down here. I'm going to be a little bit crazy here. I'm going to go even a little bit darker in those shadow areas on her hair. I like it. I'm not going to be too delicate with the spear because it's got such small surface area. I don't think it really matters that much. Oh, there you go. You can see how much just adding gray to this like sort of like brings it to life. Now we got to take care of our cavemen. We can't leave them. So we'll go in and do the same thing on them that I did on our hero. Ooh, some of that black blood. Don't ever trust anything that says, "Oh yeah, it's waterproof," or yeah, because it's. But even if you do have some ink that smears a little bit, you can always blend it, and no one's the wiser. But these are like, you should, when you're doing watercolors or even markers, you should lay the stuff down quick. You don't want to over render it and try to finesse it and stuff. You want to understand where your values are, understand where your light source is, and just go in and hit it. Where's that 2 at? There it is. And then blend it a little bit, but you don't have to go overboard. Like you can leave the shapes, like I'm doing right now. I'm not trying to get this to look like it was airbrushed, because then it looks overworked and it just looks like crap. So you want to be fast and loose. And that's something I learned actually in commercial art, because we had to use markers for what were called comps, like to give if you're doing an ad, you would do a gray comp, sometimes a color comp with markers, a smaller piece on marker paper so they could see what the ad would look like, but it's not in any way finished artwork. And I was just told, man, just go in there, do it fast and dirty. And it really does. It keeps it from getting overworked, and it kind of makes it feel more alive than if you just kind of work everything and try to. Because if you get too much marker on here, just like watercolors, it can ruin the paper, and then the paper starts disintegrating, and you get that kind of weird paper texture underneath it that you don't want because you've overworked it. So and once you get enough layers of lighter gray on there, as you can see, like right here, I just barely touched that, and it just kind of softened by itself because it's saturated enough with the marker underneath it that it just gives you that soft edge without even having to work very hard to blend it. You do that by building up the layers again, just laying that stuff down and not trying to finesse it too much. Like, as cool as airbrush was in the 70s, I grew to loathe it, and I hate that look. That's why I don't like over-rendered comic book coloring that looks all airbrushy and stuff, because it looks cheesy. I'm sorry. I mean, that's just me, but I know a lot of people like that, but I like a little bit of texture in my coloring and, some layers. I just think it's more interesting looking. But again, you can probably, maybe you can see how I just put that in there quick like that, and it just, the edge softens because it's underneath or on top of more marker that's already laid there, so that that paper is wet or primed, if you will, and so it blends on its own. All right, let's go with 4 for his hair. All right, so we got one caveman to go. So I'm getting back out my 0, just like I did on all these other guys. And again, remembering our light source is coming down this way. Now this 0, you can hear it squeaking. It's running out of ink. So we're just going to get through this piece before I need to fill it up again. Okay, let's see here. Jimmy Owens says, just checking how you and Shelly are before I go to bed for a big scan at 9:45 a.m. Last food or water here soon. So I'm munching all I can. Love you all. Good night. We're hanging in there, Jimmy. We're doing fine. Good luck tomorrow on your scan. I hope you're feeling better. I know Jimmy Owens has a lot of health challenges, but he's a great guy, and he's been a supporter of ours and our campaign since the very beginning. And we love Jimmy and wish him the best. So good luck on your scan tomorrow. I'm not putting quite as much effort into these guys because I kind of look at them as sort of like background guys. So much in the way that, say someone like Frazetta would take a character like this and probably would only do detail, on the parts that he thought you might be looking at, and then just sort of fade the rest of it into the background, because you always ask yourself, or you should ask yourself, what do I want people to look at in this drawing? I think that's one of the problems, and I shouldn't say problems, because a lot of fans like that. They do the hyper detailed stuff, and are just blown away by all the lines and all that kind of stuff. But artistically speaking, what you want to do as a storyteller is you want people to be looking at the stuff that's important, not just wandering all over the page, or having stuff lost in all the detail. Because detail is, I like it too, but I think I prefer to see it effectively used rather than just on everything in the picture, just render the crap out of it, and then it's just like all big one mess of lines. And I know a lot of people do that because and a lot of fans like that. But I'm telling you, you shouldn't like it. No, I'm just saying that when you start really thinking about storytelling, and apart from the art, right? You want to do good art. You always want to do good art, and you want to do great art if you're capable of it. But in comics, storytelling, or even in illustration, where you're illustrating to usually even a single illustration trying to tell a story or a portion of a story, you want people looking, you want your initial look. People are going to look around the page in a single piece of artwork. They'll look at it and look at all the detail. But you want them to first reaction to say, okay, boom, what am I looking at? So we're looking at here, then we want down here is the last thing I want you guys looking at, right? So your impact is here. Does this look cool right here? Oh yeah, there's that chick. And then, okay, there's some dead guys down here. Who cares about that? And you control that by your lighting and the amount of detail you put into your work and where you put that detail. There's never a case, well, I shouldn't say never, but there's practically never a case where you want the background to maybe more interesting than the foreground. You don't want people going, oh my gosh, look at the detail back here. You want them looking at these guys. These are where your story's at most of the time. I mean, there's exceptions to everything, but just off the top of my head, there might be a time where the background's more important, but that's when you have your characters, characters will have their back to you looking at this background that you're supposed to look at. Like like in this story, they come across a, dilapidated temple or something, right? So that's going to be, these guys are going to be in the foreground. They'll be shaded and just create as framing devices for the temple in the background that I want you to see, right? But if I put them in the foreground and detail them up, and then detail the background, and it's just, you're not sure where you're supposed to be looking, and the focus gets spread out all over the place instead of where you want it or where you should want it, I guess, is the moral of the story there. And everything I'm saying sounds like common sense, right? But it's really easy to get caught up in detail because it's fun and everybody thinks it looks cool, but you really want to be aware of where you're putting it. So that your audience is looking where you want them to look so that you can most effectively tell the story. Okay. All right, so I'm going to color in their pupils here. I'm going to go probably a 3. Where is my whiteout pens? Somebody asked me, I think it was Bill Wiest, asked me what was the best whiteout pen. And the Presto pen is pretty good if you want one that covers, but it doesn't give you a lot of flexibility in how you use it. This Sharpie whiteout is pretty good. It covers pretty well. I mean, a lot of the pens do not cover well. You have to go over them multiple times to get it white. And they also, a lot of times, will pick up the black on the tip of the pen. So then everything turns gray. And so it's really difficult to find a good whiteout pen. But I think this Sharpie is the best one that I've had. I'm going to go in with a 5 on this belt just to kind of make it a little bit darker. Really, I probably should have silhouetted this whole arm. What I'll do is I'll go in with a 4, I think. Shade it up a little bit more. Because it's really just a shape over there, and you don't really want to, like I said, no one wants to be looking at this guy's hand. Why? So why detail it up? Knock it back, it's not important. All right, I'm going to put, by graying this up, it made it kind of look like that was part of his stomach and not part of his pants. So I'm going to put a highlight across here like that. There we go. Okay, I think I'm gonna grab a circle template and put the proverbial circle background back here, like a sun or something. Do I want to go here? Do I want to go here? I don't want to go there. I'm going to go here. And if I'm wrong, oh well, too late. Yeah, that's good. And should we put some couple of pterosaurs back here, or pteranodons, or whatever the heck they're called? Yeah. Isn't it weird how odd numbers seem to work in art? Odd number items or characters, as opposed to even numbered ones, feel like they're, but it seems like every other walk of life, we kind of want things like even numbers, but it's always odd numbers with art. I don't know, always interesting. This ended up being a pretty good piece for a piece that I was about ready to throw in the trash. Just goes to show you, and I tell you, everybody I've ever talked to that paints, I mean, literally everybody except, well, I never talked to Rosetta, so I couldn't tell you what he would say, but I have in conversations with every painter, and they all say the same thing. There's a stage in your painting, and this isn't a painting, but it still applies because it's a piece of art, where you're like, everything looks like crap. Like this is a disaster, and you want to quit because it's just not working. And then you always push through, and then it becomes something. And it's especially true in painting because there's so many stages to getting a finished painting, and a lot of it is very rough and ugly as you're building your foundations to put your finishes on top of. And I guess through experience, you start to recognize that. So you just don't go, okay, this sucks, I'm throwing it out. You just keep grinding, and then it eventually becomes something. There we go. Look at that. What a nice piece. I'm happy. I'm very happy with myself for finishing this instead of tossing it. So there you go. How about that? I'd pat myself on the back if I could bend my arm good without hurting myself. Foogman says Ethan Van Sciver is better than you. Well, I'm not necessarily here to have a contest with anybody. I'm just Foogman. What a jerk. Yeah. All right. There's always one troll that your whole life revolves around being a jerk. And I guess if that's you, Foogman, more power to you, brother. All righty. Let's take a look at let's take a look real quick again. Why am I doing this right now? because I have a campaign called Barbaric Adventures. We've had a few backers tonight. I want to thank you guys very much for that. Again, real quickly here, this is called Barbaric Adventures. That's what my campaign just launched a couple days ago. On Wednesday, you have, it's a black and white. It's going to look similar to what we're looking at here with black and white with gray tones. 8.5 by 11, 64 pages. And we have 4 cover options here. It has this one by me, which features my story, which is going to be called Primal Zone, or is called Primal Zone. This is David Williams' cover, which features his character, which I don't know the name of his story, so I'm not going to say. This is Dan Lawless. This is cover C. This is his digitally painted cover. And of course, it represents his story in the book. And then, of course, we have Joe Jusko, guest artist, who painted this. And he, of course, is the legend when it comes to cover painting that we still have with us, still doing great work, obviously. And this cover represents the preview story of Freya the Ice Princess, Yeti Slayer, who will appear in this book as well. So here's some examples of the interior work that's in the book. There's some of Dan's right there. This, of course, was mine. These are the exclusive items that come only in the Big Barbaric box, which is an option to buy. This cover, this is a layout color rough. It's not the finished art, but you can only get this cover. It'll be a finished painted cover when it's done, and it will be only available in the Big Barbaric box. We have stretch goals, 40, 60, 80,000, 100,000, which we're not sure what that's going to be up. It'll be something very cool. They're all trading cards because I love my trading cards. And this is the Barbaric Adventures sketchbook, 32 pages, 8.5 by 11. It'll be signed by me. This limited edition print called Snow Hunt, featuring our Yeti Slayer, Freya the Ice Princess. Signed by me, of course, because I drew it and colored it. You can get a shot glass with Barbaric Adventures laser etched into it. And then, of course, there's original art for sale. You have to keep scrolling, folks, all the way to the bottom, and that's when you find the rewards. You can get the 4-pack plus. That's all 4 covers, plus the sketchbook at a discounted price. I have an option for, I don't really know why I have a rewards option for the shot glass. Probably because it ships separately, so you can order it. It doesn't really make any, it's not going to save you any on, if you order one, it's not going to save you any on shipping because it ships separately. I guess that's why I have its own reward. You can get just cover A, cover B, cover D, cover, wait a minute, let me try that again. These are out of order. A, C, D, and then B. Why is it down here? I do not know. You can get Barbaric #1 with my cover and a sketchbook. Or you can get Barbaric #1, my cover, with the sketchbook and the print. And there it is, the Big Barbaric box, $210 values for $185. Then we have all the original art options, whatever's left. And then all the add-ons, folks, that you can do. And it even goes back to Wraith of God 1, 2, and 3. Graphic novel, Kit Carter Planet Doom is available if you missed that. Garbage Man trade paperback, if you missed that. Power Cube trade paperback. Both of these were originally published through Dark Horse, and but they're part of my creator-owned universe. And actually, Garbage Man was originally published through DC Comics, and then the rights returned to me, and then I had Dark Horse do a collection for me because DC never did. And then you can add on each of the covers individually and the sketchbook. So there you go. And also, you don't get charged actually for the entire purchase until the campaign closes in 46 days or whenever it is. Then you'll be charged that and the shipping, but the shipping doesn't show up on your initial charge when you order. It's added on later. So when your credit card actually gets billed, the shipping will be on there as well. So, or so I'm told. It's the first time I've used Indiegogo since it revamped. So we'll find out together. So anyway, there you go. 243 backers, $20,000, $524. Let's keep pushing. You'll find a link in the description of this video and pinned to the top of this chat. If you happen to be watching on X, check it out. You can go to my homepage on X, or you can go to Indiegogo and type in Aaron Lopresti or Barbaric Adventures, and it'll take you right there. John Platt for £5 sterling says, I went comic hunting this week, but unfortunately didn't manage to find what I wanted, but I did get Marvel Spider-Man Omnibus hardbook. Let me try that again. I did get Marvel Spider-Man Omnibus hardback. Great art and stories. Thank you for that, John. Appreciate it. Agent Cub, I backed it. Thank you, Agent Cub. I appreciate it. Are you guys omnibus people? I have never bought an omnibus. I almost bought the Man-Thing omnibus. They're like $100. I mean, they're really cool, and I guess you get a lot for it, but there's like $100. I'm like, ouch. It's a lot. All right, Jimmy, I'll keep you in my prayers, buddy. All right, let's see here now. Avenger 2 is talking about heavy metal. It says Tarna may be the most popular part of the film. That's the scantily clad barbarian chick. But I felt Captain Stern had better character animation. Also, the voices of Stern and his defense attorney were done by Eugene Levy and Joe. Well, I'll tell you this, Captain Stern is the last great Wrightson story. And it's kind of cool that they put it in that movie. I was very excited when I saw the trailer for that. Oh, I see. You're talking about the Joe Jusko cover reminding you of her from, okay. Marcus Killerby, crazy man, he says, just finished streaming myself and have been up since 6 a.m. Eastern. Yikes. Even I didn't get up that early on Wednesday when I streamed for 11 straight hours. Ugh. I still want to know if Aaron is getting that painting. Joe's painting? He has not given it to me. Now, I did, like when Bisley did my, maybe the reason you're asking is because I've ended up purchasing that's done work for me. I've purchased, I got Keown's Werewolf, Bisley's a painted cover, Chris Stevens painted cover, both of them. Joe, unfortunately for me, is a little out of my price range. So unless this campaign really blows up, I won't have the resources to get it. So unfortunately, maybe someday. Speaking of which, this is the canvas. Of my painted cover, with a lot of advice from Joe, by the way. So I contact my painting buddies and like, okay, I need to do this. How should I do this? What should I use? What do you think? Blah, blah, blah. So, so Joe is very helpful in me kind of getting a grip on these acrylics. And every time I do a painting, it was better than the last one. And I assume that the next one's even going to be better than this. And I really, really enjoy painting, mainly because it's such a freaking challenge. Spent 35 years doing black and white stuff, and always wanted to be, like Frazetta and paint like that. And So I'm creating projects here that make me do it. Um, let's see. Avenger says, nice cover painting. Thank you, sir. My son got me the Simonson Thor omnibus for my 60th birthday. That's a pretty awesome omnibus to get. Very nice. Stella says, how much is he selling it for? I don't know. Okay, but I know that like some of his paintings, go for 10,000 plus. So, no, it's my character, so maybe the market isn't as strong for something like that. And I would be shocked if it was less than $5,000. Of course, that's pretty much what I paid for Bisley's, but I had more money then. So like I said, if he has it for a while, it's available. Maybe I'll see if I can save up enough to pull that off. GJ Martinez says, Aaron, you are correct. You did do an Eon Chance trading card already. Then I'm going to have to change that to another character. So I'll do that. Who haven't we done yet in a trading card? I'm trying to remember the artwork for the trading card. Oh, no. Okay. I remember it now. Yeah. Okay. I kept thinking of the value stamp, which I did, but now I do remember the trading card. All right. We'll just put something else in there. That's okay. Let's see. The Metal Pig says, imagine how much a Boris Vallejo or Julie Bell would cost. I love Julie Bell's stuff. And that's interesting because but Boris is a much better artist than Julie Bell is. They both now or have been, since the 80s, really relied heavily on photo reference. But Boris can draw really, really well. And so I like Boris's 70s stuff, where before he started, getting into using too heavy photo reference. And like I Am a Barbarian or his Gore series, they have more life to them, to me. And the stuff in the 80s got more stilted and like that. And I just, he's a brilliant painter, but I would have preferred that if he had used less photo reference and just kind of drawn them, kind of more like Frazetta did, because that to me has more life to it. But yeah, they're freaking expensive. I saw who was it that had a Doc Savage cover painting by James Bama? Was it Graphic Collectibles? Gosh darn. But it was years ago. It was at least 10 years ago, probably 15 years ago. He had a original Doc Savage Bama painting cover. It wasn't one of my favorites, but it was still, I think he had it for 15,000. So you got to think that Boris is probably, Bama's pretty big, but I would guess that, you're probably in that anywhere from, 30, 40,000 up to $100,000+, depending on the painting. I mean, he's not in Frazetta territory, but I'm sure he's very expensive. Yeah, Hildebrandt, that stuff, you get the right stuff, like the Lord of the Rings stuff, is probably really expensive. Yeah, I'm gonna try and drag him on either my Sunday show or Graybeards. Probably more likely my Sunday show because he probably doesn't want to draw. We talked about this on Graybeards last episode, that how hard it is to get, or maybe it was with David yesterday, I can't remember, how hard it is to get people to come on Graybeards because they just don't want to draw on camera. Because a lot of guys are like, hey, why should I come in the show and draw for free? And I get it, so Let's see. I'm just perusing the chat real quick. Pantheon says, do you know I actually would like to see a barbarian with a big pot belly and he's just slaying all of his adversaries? I don't think we ever seen that. Well, wait a minute. Volstagg, right? Like from Thor, he was a big old fatty and he he was a swordsman. It's not exactly the same thing. I get what you're saying. It's kind of funny. What Agent Cub says, what is that comic on your spinner rack under the X-Men Teen Titans? Let's go see. War Against the Giants. I think Sequential Treasures sent that to me. And then Fantastic Four 80, guest starring Wyatt Wingfoot. This Kirby stuff there. And then Superman. Is that Garcia? No, it's Andrew and Gordano, or Giordano Gordano. So yeah, so we had Superman 345, FF 80, DC Special presents War of the Giants, the 19, and then of course the classic X-Men Teen Titans. There you go. That's what's in there. My favorite comic, though, that I can see right there is that Doc Savage back there, number 8. Love Doc Savage back in the day. Oh, under it. Okay, hang on a second. Did you enjoy doing that Wonder Woman Conan series with Gail? Yes, I did. I know Gail gets a lot of crap, but I've never had a problem working with her. So, and I know politically we don't agree. And we've had actually some pretty interesting dinner conversations back in the day when it was okay to still have different opinions about things and not get mad at each other. So Doc Savage 7 or Deathstroke the Terminator 22, and not Brand X down here, number 4 from back 1968. And then this Thor cover. This is one of my favorite. You want to talk about a great design for a cover? It's that Simonson's Thor cover right there. But anyway, yeah, I actually did. Liam Sharp was supposed to do that. I feel like, I'm kind of offended sometimes when someone else has offered something and then you're the second or third choice. But that happens all the time, like in Hollywood and things like that. It's like Dudley Moore gets an Academy Award nomination for Arthur, but they really wanted Richard Dreyfuss, and he, so it's just kind of how it works. So Liam was supposed to do it. He couldn't do it. So then I think Gail suggested me, because we had done my run on Wonder Woman with her. The first story arc we did was a Barbarian story arc. And so yeah, I got that. And I loved it. I loved doing that. It was so much fun. I thought it was going to be stupid. I said, if you bring Conan to current times, this is going to be dumb. But instead, she brought Wonder Woman back to Conan's time, and it actually, that was a pretty fun story. Interesting thing about that is we did I got the job, and then I said, okay, well, when do I start doing covers? And I'm like, oh, we've already assigned the covers, which really pissed me off. So I went to Dan DiDio and I said, Dan, I'm doing this Wonder Woman Conan thing, and I want to do the covers, but they've already been assigned. And he said, well, who got the covers? And I said, well, Derek Robertson, which was a really, I thought, weird choice for Conan. But anyway, so, and I don't mean any offense to Derek or anything like that. It just, you don't think of him as a Conan artist off the top, oh. So, and Dan was like, okay, I'll tell you what I'll do. We'll give you an alternate cover. So, now in the first issue, Liam Sharp did the alternate cover. So they didn't have an alternate cover to give me. So starting with issue 2 through 6, I got to do alternate covers and variants, I guess you'd call them, right? Except for one issue, I think it was 5. I actually did the main cover for some reason. And yeah, but I really enjoyed working on it because I love that stuff, and after I did that, I actually did a Conan story for Dark Horse Presents, which I wrote and drew. I contacted Dark Horse and said, hey, because they still had the Conan license at the time. And I said, can I do a Conan story for you? And they're like, yeah, sure. And I'm like, I said, well, we could run one in Dark Horse Presents if you want to do it. And I said, yeah. And so they gave me, said, can you do an 8-page story? I said, absolutely. And so I wrote and drew an 8-page Conan story. It was in Dark Horse Presents that Matt Banning inked, who did a terrific job, very good inker as well. Metal Pig says, didn't they bring Conan into MCU? They did, but the original story was they all were drawn into the Savage Land to begin with. So it was like Conan wasn't so weirdly out of place in the first story arc. And that's all I read. And I kind of liked it. I didn't think I would, but someone goes, you got to read this. It's pretty good. And I said, all right. So I read it and I actually did kind of like it, I have to admit. And like at the end of the series, or this first 6 issues, or whatever the first story arc was, first 4 issues, Punisher and Conan go off on foot to get out of the Savage Land where these other guys, get a portal or something. I can't remember what the deal was, but I just thought the Punisher and Conan hanging out together, going through the Savage Land. Now that's a story. So, but yeah, so it was good. I don't know when they got out of the Savage Land. I have no idea because but I thought the whole concept was stupid. Like, I was like, this is dumb. But they did it in a way, I can't remember who wrote it, but they did it in a way that actually made sense. Some mystical dudes were using a portal or something. And they transferred them all into the Savage Land for some reason. Like I said, I can't remember. And so it was like you basically have these guys fighting in this, Wolverine, and I guess Venom is in there too, right? I don't know. And you're fighting in like the Savage Lands. It's kind of cool. I kind of liked it. So there you go. Yeah, I haven't seen Derek in a gazillion years. I think Mike I was working on the Ultraverse last time I talked to him. But yeah, he was always a nice guy when I encountered him and stuff. I wasn't trying to disparage him. I'm just saying that when I get on a series, I want to do my own covers, and they've been given to Derek Robertson, and it wasn't like they gave him to Mark Schultz or somebody that's known for barbaric work or that type of work. So I was like, it seemed odd to me, but it wouldn't. I don't care. I got an assignment, and Walter Simonson was supposed to do the covers, and I love Walter. He's one of my favorite guys in the world. But I was like, no, I'm doing the covers. So like they had Walter do the cover to the first issue and made it a variant and gave me the rest of the covers, and gave me all the covers actually, but made Walter's a variant. And so I don't know if I took his job away from him, if he got to do variants for the whole series, I don't know, but I'm sure he rebounded fine. But yeah, I mean, it's like that always ticked me off that they would assign covers and then get the artist for the book and go, oh, I'm sorry, you can't do the covers because we already hired somebody. I'm like, well, don't hire somebody to do the covers. Hire me to do the covers and the book. So anyway, whatever. Yeah, none your business, huh? You're still awake? I'm about ready to call it quits. Oh, Leg Kick says he gets compliments on the Garbage Man shirt. I don't have any more of these, I don't think. Yeah, we had the Keon Werewolf shirt, the Wraith of God shirt, the Garbage Man shirt, and then most recently the Bisley shirt. I do have a ton of Bisley shirts and Keon shirts left, though, from the last campaign. So I got to put them on my shop. So anyway, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. We're here at 11 o'clock my time, which means if you're on the East Coast at 2 a.m., unbelievable. I guess tomorrow's Saturday, but still, I'll get some sleep. All right, so there you go. This is what I did tonight. If you're just tuning in and saying, what did I miss? I did finished inking this and then mostly just did the gray on it. And I'm going to put this up on the campaign. Why the heck not? I'll remember to sign it too. So anyway, guys, The reason I did it, of course, was to promote Barbaric Adventures #1. You see behind me that painting on that easel. That's one of your cover options out of 4. So the campaign, you'll find a link in the description of this video. It's also pinned to the top of this chat. Or you can just go to Indiegogo, type in Barbaric Adventures or Aaron Lopresti, and it'll take you right there. So I appreciate, oh, John Platt says it's 6 a.m. here in the UK, Aaron. Are you just getting up or going to bed? There was a Conan versus Thor. Conan couldn't hang with Thor. You guys are keeping me from going to bed. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. We got a couple of super chats. Thank you guys for that as well. Thanks for participating in the chat. And believe me, we'll be doing this a lot in the very near future. So hopefully see you again real soon. Come to my Sunday show, 3 o'clock Pacific time. Got a lot of good stuff. We're in our final, the top 10 AFI 100 films of all time, along with many other fun things. So join me there, and we'll see you soon. Good night, everybody. Thank you. Mr.